We've been here before, fighting the problems that fight back, because we see opportunities where others see obstacles. We're change makers and problem solvers, uniting over 1 million minds to address complex issues facing communities around the world, including yours. We're working together as partners and professionals, while making friendships that last a lifetime. We're Rotary, and there's no limit to what we can do.
Good afternoon, Rotarians, friends, and guests. I'm Hannibal B. Johnson. It's my privilege as president of the Rotary Club of Tulsa to welcome you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the fun, the festivities, and the fellowship that are the hallmarks of our weekly luncheons. On any given Wednesday at noon, just know that we'll be here with a special experience crafted just for you. All you have to do is show up and engage with us. If you haven't already done so, please take a moment to silence your cell phones now. Thank you. A special thanks to Tom Wolfe for our pre-meeting musical interlude. Let's begin our program with Song and Pledge from Jerry Dillon, the invocation from Reverend Jessica Moffitt, and visitor introductions from Dr. Michael Turner.
In spite of all the division in our political life in our country, we still live in the greatest country in the world. We have much to be proud of, and we want to honor seeking our Heavenly Father to guide us as we sing, God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairie, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Let's pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I pray, let me just say again what a joy it is to be the church that hosts the greatest Rotary Club in the world. So thank you for sticking with us. We love you. Gracious and almighty God, we thank you for our gathering today. We are just better when we are together. Remind us again what it means to live with service above self. We thank you especially for a week like this one where a park opens that is going to bring life and health and goodness to our city. And then at the same time, we pray that you would make us more deeply aware of those in our city who hurt and who are hungry and who are needy. And so we simply ask today that you would use us. Use our club to make a difference in our city. Use our lives to make a difference in our work and in our everyday living. Let all that we're about to do this day bring you honor and glory. Amen.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa on this beautiful September day on the 5th of September. Great to have all of our visitors and guests with us today. And I tell you, following a minister who says this is the greatest Rotary Club in the world, it's kind of an easy gig now. I mean, that's pretty awesome. It's been officially cemented. I'm going to introduce our Rotary hosts and then their guests, and I'll ask that the host and their guests please stand. And we'll hold all of our applause to the end and then welcome everybody as a group. Kathy Grill has with her today Mike Rogers, but they didn't sit together, sorry. Mike, you can come up here if you want. Norm Simon has Judge Linda Morrissey with him today. Jeremy Sadler has Trish Hariska. Oh my gosh, no, Trish. We changed the writing on that one. Sorry about that, Trish. Trish has Jeremy with her today. Brian Bovard has two guests with him today, Julie Hasfjord and Reese Hundley. Good to have them. And let's welcome all of our visitors.
That's great. Thank you, Jerry, Jessica, and Michael. Once again, welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa, where Tulsa's finest business and community leaders come together to serve and to be the inspiration both in our community and around the world. Let's thank all of our meeting volunteers whose service makes our meetings run so smoothly week after week after week. We also like to thank this week's meeting's sponsor, We Be Trees, with Tim Knoll, who's sitting up front. We encourage you to give your fellow Rotarians the business literally. Our announcements. The Club Foundation Grants Committee will meet today in room 233. Be the inspiration. This week's Rotary inspiration is Tim Knoll. An anonymous Rotarian writes, "There are many unsung heroes that I admire in our Rotary Club, but one especially stands out as a true example of service and generosity. For years, Tim Knoll has silently expressed his service through gifts of time and thoughtfulness. Each year, his reoccurring treat of game day tickets for auction is but one example of his sincere Rotarian spirit. He is a man of integrity, and he uses wit and wisdom to make our lives better. We certainly appreciate Tim and his true Rotarian example." So Tim, on behalf of the Rotary Club of Tulsa, please accept your Rotary Internationally themed Be the Inspiration lapel pin for being our Rotary inspiration. Rotary International dedicates the month of September to basic education and literacy. More than 775 million people over the age of 15 are illiterate. That's 17% of the world's adult population. The Rotary International Foundation supports education through scholarships, donations, and service projects all around the world. The goal is to strengthen the capacity of communities to support basic education and literacy, reduce gender disparity in education, and increase adult literacy. Let's watch a video. Since 1994, the Rotary Club of Tulsa has donated over 1,200 books to the Mike Chittum Memorial Library at our adoptive school, Celia Clinton. One book per week, week after week, year after year. Statesman and abolitionist Frederick Douglass once said, "Once you learn to read, you will forever be free." We know that freedom of the mind is among the greatest of all forms of freedom. Through our work, we know that the little things we do with good intention often lead to positive impacts both at the individual level and community-wide. So thanks to each of you for supporting the education of our kids at Celia Clinton Elementary School. At this time, it's my privilege to introduce past President Corey Nickerson with a memorial resolution. Corey.
We're going to honor Jim Kelly for just a moment, but I want to introduce the guests that are here. Dot Kelly, his spouse, is here. Jim Murphy, who is Jim Kelly's favorite nephew. Of course, he's always also his only nephew and the only one in attendance. So. And then friends of the family, Mary Lou and June, and I'm sorry I missed your last names, but thank you for being here. Thank you. Be it resolved that members of the Rotary Club of Tulsa express our heartfelt awareness of the benefit and contribution to this club of Rotarian James Henry Kelly, Jr., who passed from this life at the age of 95. Jim was sponsored into the Rotary Club of Tulsa on August 19, 1998 by Glenn Birkenbeil, and served with the club for nearly 20 years until his death in November of last year. Jim was a Paul Harris Fellow, a Club Foundation Fellow, and a member of the Rotary Men of Note. James Henry Kelly, Jr. was born November the 11th, 1922 in Shreveport, Louisiana, to parents James Henry Kelly and Viola Bagwell Kelly. His mother passed when Jim was 3 years old, and he was raised by his aunt, Lee Thompson. He played baseball at Byrd High School and graduated in 1943. Jim graduated with a chemistry degree from Louisiana Tech and missed the draft because the United States government needed his particular skill set for gasoline production work in the Louisiana gas industry during the final years of the war effort. A year after the war ended, he completed a master's degree in gas technology from the Illinois Institute of Technology. Jim became a member of Boston Avenue United Methodist Church in the late 50s and met Dorothy Carlisle in the Young Adult Fellowship class. He and Dot fell in love and were married on November 21, 1964, just as Warren Petroleum decided to transfer into Hobbs, New Mexico. In 1976, they moved back to Tulsa and were active members at Boston Avenue for the past 40-plus years, where Jim sang in the choir for nearly 30 years. In addition to his memberships with the Rotary Club of Tulsa and Boston Avenue United Methodist Church, Jim was also a member in the Society of Petroleum Engineers and volunteered with Gilcrease Museum. Jim loved sports of all kinds, and he and Dot held season tickets to ORU basketball and Arkansas football and basketball games for years. Jim was born on Armistice Day, 4 years after the end of World War I, and perhaps that fact marked him, for he was a man of peace throughout his life. Dot says it was really difficult to get an argument going with him. He always seemed to go into walk-away mode and would only come back to the subject when he had collected his thoughts and could present them without anger. Over a 14-year period, while Jim and I were both involved with the Rotary Men of Note, I don't remember a single time when he missed or was late to a rehearsal or a concert unless he and Dot were out of town and he had told me about it ahead of time. Jim was consistent, Jim was solid, Jim was faithful, and Jim was at peace with himself and those around him. This quote from Mother Teresa seems to have been embodied in the life of our friend James Henry Kelly, Jr. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. We as Rotarians, along with his family and friends, will miss this peaceful and gentle man. I move that this resolution be adopted by a standing vote of the Rotary Club of Tulsa. Please rise for a moment of silent tribute in honor and memory of Jim Kelly. A copy of this resolution will go into the permanent archives of the Rotary Club of Tulsa and will be given to the family. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Corey. The Rotary Club of Tulsa will continue to embrace the Kelly family. Please welcome fellow Rotarian Joe Moran to introduce a returning Rotarian.
It is my honor to introduce Elizabeth Hunt, also known as Liz. Liz was a member of the Oklahoma City Rotary Club and a former member of this club, where she was the co-founder of the Above and Beyond Awards. Liz is an accredited communications professional of more than 20 years. She serves as the manager of marketing, communications, and public affairs of ITC Great Plains, a subsidiary of ITC Holdings Corp., the nation's largest independent electricity transmission company. She oversees ITC's outreach for public relations and marketing efforts in the Southwest Power Pool footprint. Liz possesses senior-level communications experience, including tenures with 2 Fortune 500 organizations and serving as the Chief Marketing and Media Relations Officer for the City of Tulsa. Active and engaged in the state of Oklahoma, Liz is an extremely proud graduate of Leadership Oklahoma's Class 21, along with myself and Michael Turner, best class ever. She also graduated from Leadership Tulsa and the Tulsa Police Department's Citizen Police Academy. Liz currently serves as a board member of the Oklahoma State Chamber's Oklahoma Achieves Initiative. She's also a board member of Allied Arts, Oklahoma Women's Lead, and the Bob Wills Heritage Foundation. She also serves as a member of the Oklahoma Women in Power and is an advisory board member of the Foundation for Oklahoma City's Public Schools, the Tulsa Regional Chamber, and the Oklahoma State Chamber. Recognition of Liz's accomplishments are many, and a few are the Journal Record's 1 of 50 Oklahoma Women Making a Difference, the Tulsa Regional Chamber's Women in Business Champion, the Journal Record's Achievers Under 40, and the Tulsa Business Journal 40 Under 40. Liz has also been honored by the Tulsa Kids magazine as being one of 20 Tulsans who care about children and families, and by the Cystic Fibrosis chapter as one of Tulsa's 20 new leaders. Liz has also been awarded the Journal Record's Beacon Award for philanthropic impact. Fellow Rotarians, I'm proud to reintroduce to you Liz Hunt. You already have your copy of the 4-way test in your Rotary pen. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our new member, Liz Hunt, with a special Club of Tulsa standing salute. Please stand.
Thank you, Joe, and welcome, Liz. Now it's Sarge time, so let's welcome Daniel Gomez, Esquire. I'll add the little Esquire twist on it.
I like that. I'm gonna start putting that on my letterhead. Thanks, Hannibal. Thanks, Michelle, last week for filling in for me. I'm back and have a few things this week. Let's see. Get the show up. There we are. All right, first thing is my friend Luann wanted me to bring up estate planning. If you're in this, or if you're planning your estate, include the Rotary Club of Tulsa Foundation. The Rotary Club of Tulsa Foundation has a legacy gift program to designate our club foundation in your will. They'll also accept gifts of property. Gifts count towards giving levels and will be recognized for participating in the legacy program. I think this is consistent with being the inspiration, so if anybody is willing to do this, it'd be a great help for our foundation. Contact Luann or Del Dreyer, and they'll set you up with that. Thank you, Luann. A couple of finds this week. Jane Carlson, I think I saw her, $100 for 7 years in Rotary. Her anniversary was August 31st. Thank you, Jane. Jim Morrison, $200. Jim's over here. I just saw him. $100 for his 87th birthday, which is September 5th. I guess that's today, isn't it? Happy birthday, Jim. And also $100 for 42 years in Rotary, and his anniversary is August 30th. And he handed me a note this morning, says he has perfect attendance at these meetings over 42 years. So. Thank you, Jim. Arnold Brown was in the paper recently for a 70th wedding anniversary. He was married to his wife, Pat, August 1st, 1948. I've been in contact with Arnold's daughter, Lori, she says that he can't make these, so I don't think he's here today, but if anybody ever catches wind that he can make one of these, please let me know so we can recognize him in person. But Lori sent me, these pictures are actually published in the paper, $70 to show this. Here's a picture of their wedding day in 1948, and here they are more recently. So a round of applause for Arnold and his wife, Pat. Ticket auctions. This week there's a big game in Norman, OU versus UCLA. It's a 12 noon game. As always, we'll be out there taking bids. That's this Saturday, and the OSU tickets are against South Alabama. Hopefully we can win that game, but it's still fun. If nothing else, you should go see the new Jumbotron. It's amazing. I was at the last game, and the best thing they do is on kick, if the opposite team is kicking a field goal towards that thing, Pistol Pete's head just stares at you like it's looking into your soul. I think it's awesome. So if nothing else, these are great seats. Go just for that. Next week, OU versus Iowa State. This is a preview for you guys to start making plans for this. It's a conference game, and if you guys remember, Iowa State, I think, won that game last year. They're pretty good again, so sign up, go watch them get their revenge. OSU has a big game. It's a perfect time, 2:30 in the afternoon against Boise State, who's ranked in the top 20. I think they're 22 this week. It's going to be a big game. I'll be there, but great seats. You get a parking pass with it. Let's prepare for a big vote on that. Speaking of football, I'm trying to raise a few bucks here, so I'm gonna start a thing called School Spirit. So if anybody wants to just send me pictures of them at a tailgate party, wearing their gear, anything, any school, send it to me, 10, 15, 20 bucks. I won't do it every week, but I'm gonna kind of let them pile up and then I'll go through them. I think it's gonna be a fun way to raise a few bucks. Here's mine, 20 bucks. That's my daughter with Pistol Pete. I'm proud to say she's a brave little girl. She has never cried meeting Pistol Pete, even once. And you can see she's actually pretty happy there. So send me your pictures, tailgating, anything you got. Anything School Spirit related. Doesn't have to be a lot, 10, 15 bucks. It adds up fast, I tell you. Finally, I don't know if anybody went to the raft race, but you'll remember that somebody donated some money for President Hannibal to have a boat. He had somebody join him, if you can recognize Becky there. If anybody was there, you may not have seen him. I was told the boat sunk right after it took off. But anyways, here's a picture. It's totally real, I promise. But congratulations, Hannibal, for this.
You're kind of sinking right now.
I'll help you dredge it out later this afternoon,
Okay.
right?
All right.
Well, thanks again, everybody. Like I said, School Spirit pictures, send them to me. A couple bucks, it's going to add up, I promise. And we'll have some fun with it. Thanks again.
Great. Thanks, Daniel. Our vocational minute today is from past President Jeff Hassel, Gable Gottwals. Jeff.
Thank you, President Hannibal. So for my minute, which I think is exactly a minute, I'll tell you a little bit about my firm, Gable Gottwals, but then mostly a little bit about Mr. Gable and Mr. Gottwals. So you guys have all heard what all big firms say about themselves, that all of our lawyers went to Harvard and we're all smarter than all the other lawyers. And yes, our rates are really high, but isn't it great that you get to pay for our silk stockings? But in all seriousness, we have about a little under 100 attorneys with offices in Tulsa and Oklahoma City and handle, between myself and my colleagues, virtually any kind of legal matter that might arise. And one way I have found to get people to roll their eyes in Rotary is to say that I'm bringing in a new member and he or she is a lawyer. And everybody always says, another lawyer. But I'm the third lawyer to be at the microphone today, Hannibal, maybe more than that. In any event, Mr. Gable and Mr. Gottwals. Mr. Gable was a Rotarian in this club. His son, Dick Gable, was my sponsor. And Mr. Gable was well known for his ethics, but he did not always follow the four-way test. And I personally witnessed him in many golf tournaments when we were playing together. He would have a ball on the green, or one of us would, in a scramble, and he would casually, he had an extra ball in his pocket. He would casually walk up to the ball on the green, and just to get a feel for how the lie might be of the putt, he would just kind of toss the ball out. and we'd all get to watch the ball kind of roll toward the hole and get a little hint on what the ball might do. So let me say one other thing about gable walls, and then I'll wrap it up. We've always had multiple members in this club in my 23 years in the club, and so don't let anyone tell you when you speak to them about membership in the club that they shouldn't join, or they don't want to join, or you don't want them to join, or whatever, because there's already people from the company in the club. There are several companies who have multiple members in the club, and I encourage you not to let that be a barrier. Thank you, President Hanna.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. So we have a side mic announcement from Rotaract President Jonathan Slay. Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm excited to tell you once again about wine, cheese, and chocolate. But first, I wanted to say we're so excited that we have a new member last week from our recruiting efforts. They're going well. I had 2 people tell me they've got a referral for me today, so I encourage you to keep giving us referrals, and let's see that young pipeline grow and see more Rotarians in the future. So for wine, cheese, and chocolate, we're seeing sponsorships come in. We're excited. This event is only about 6 weeks away. It's October 25th, and we're giving away free chocolate if you buy a ticket or do a sponsorship in the month of September. Out there at the table, Glacier Confections is working with us to provide the chocolate for this year's event. It's going to be great. We have great wine, and we actually have a jazz band from John Della Vedova, and his trio will be there. It's going to be fun. I wanted to encourage you, the proceeds of this whole event are going to orphans, widows, senior citizens through Revitalizing Together T-Town, and also to high school students to allow them to go to college, and also we're helping high schoolers to have athletic shoes to play in school sports programs. I'm excited to be a part of planning it. I hope you'll step over to our table. We'll be here every week for the next few weeks and be a sponsor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Our Rotary Inspiration is also our Rotarian of the day, and that's Tim Knoll. Tim graduated from OSU with a bachelor's degree in forestry. He's an International Society of Arboricultural Certified Arborist and an Oklahoma Registered Forester. Tim and his wife, Barbara, are co-owners of Weeby Trees here in Tulsa. Tim is an active member of Rotary, serving on our board, and in several other capacities. He also serves on the Up With Trees Board of Directors. So help me welcome fellow Rotarian, Tim Knoll. Tim.
Good afternoon. Our speaker today has a degree in geosciences from the University of Tulsa. He has pursued advanced studies in sustainable food systems, permaculture, carbon sequestration methodologies, and wildlife management with a specialty in seminar facilitation and permaculture design. He serves as a director of Valley Foundation and Valley Park Agroecology Center. I'd like to introduce now E.J. Oppenheimer.
How's everybody doing? So thanks for having me. I accidentally prepared an hour-long presentation instead of a 20-minute one, so we're going to have to wait a little while. No, just kidding. I think I can get started here. So what I do is called agroecology or permaculture, and we're doing it for forest conservation and food security. We work with people that don't have access to healthy food and no way of actively producing it. Permaculture, have you guys heard that term ever? It's basically the conjunction of permanent and agriculture, creating a system that goes forward without input for many years. The first principle is care for earth, second is care for people, and the third is return of surplus. And care for earth is first because if you don't care for that, the other two don't really matter. Bill Mollison, he was kind of the father of permaculture, and he said, permaculture is a philosophy of working with rather than against nature, of protracted and thoughtful observation rather than protracted and thoughtless work. And you can read the rest, but I can't. So, moving on. We call it restoration agriculture instead of permaculture because permaculture has kind of been hijacked by yoga and stuff like that, and I don't do yoga or make pizza ovens. Side note. So our first goal when we approach a new system is the water management, because without water, nothing will grow. We try and maximize the amount of water on the property so there's not a lot of runoff taking nutrients, and this will all make sense here in a little bit. We look at something called a handscape. So if you stick out your hand, water flows similarly all over the world. Peaks, valleys, streams, ridges. Oklahoma, it's more like this. But as we know, water will run off of a table. So we try and intercept these points where water becomes collective and erosional and make berms and swales across contour or on contour to spread the water out and soak it in. And then we plant trees on the downhill side. This is the tool we use. It's a simple level on a wooden A. And you can use laser levels and things like that, but I do a lot of work in Africa and Central and South America, and we can make this for about $2 anywhere in the world. So it's replicable and accessible technologies. These are example of swales. And they're doing, so you can see they trap the water and slowly release it downhill, down gradient. This farm, before we did that, had a huge erosional pit in the woods where it was 20 feet deep, and this is a problem all over the world. Every ag field has runoff, so we do this to minimize that runoff. This is another example of a swale on the Tisdale Food Forest. So, we focus mostly on perennials rather than annuals, because we want trees that come back year after year, like fruit trees, bushes, shrubs, instead of, say, corn or beans that you have to do the same amount of work and start at the same spot every year. We try and arrange them in a way that we can maximize the amount of photosynthesis. So we basically stack them and create a 7-layered system and plant in guilds. So this is a pretty classic example. You can see here, that's like the overstory, understory, dwarf trees, then bushes like blackberries, smaller shrubs and herbs, and then root vegetables. And if you've ever seen an overgrown ditch or a forest behind your house, that's kind of what it resembles, rather than a tree here, how humans tend to plant trees. So we kind of simulate nature and make an ecologically balanced system. This, though it looks like a mess, is actually a highly engineered system. And this is what we call perennial polyculture. It looks kind of like a green glob, but if you see, this is coconut. There's a pomegranate right in there. Then this is a neem tree that they use for medicine and oils for bug prevention. And there are avocado, banana, plantain, ginger, and all those things growing together in a way that they'll continue to grow and produce for many years. This is another form of that where you create a hugel mound, and that's basically burying logs and debris. Instead of burning it, you put it back into the soil and cover it in dirt. Over time, it decomposes and becomes a water battery and slowly release nutrients for your system. As I mentioned, we do these swales and berms, and they follow the contour. In between the swales is where you can do annual crops to subsidize your perennials as they grow. Another example of that, where they have the polycultures here. These are all trees, bushes, and shrubs, and then in the middle, pepper plants. These are all in Tanzania, by the way. So it's all about ecological balance, because in most monoculture systems, you can get one pest and it wipes out your whole crop. In a polyculture, you have natural predator-prey cycles. So for every pest, there's a predator, and it balances itself like nature does. We encourage bird activity because it brings in nutrients from your neighbors and they poop it all over your crops, so that's helpful. We also do what is called stun agriculture, sheer total utter neglect. And for 3 more days, that used to be my dating style, but I'm getting married in 3 days, so it changed. But it's effective for managing forests because you don't want a tree that you have to water every day and shade. You want it to be eaten by goats, hit by the tractor, and come back and do better and better with fewer and fewer inputs over time. We manage succession of these trees as they grow so you can accommodate charcoal needs and other timber needs for people that don't have Home Depots. Valley Park Agroecology Center is our ranch here in Oklahoma, and that's where we're starting a training facility for school kids and older people, both domestic and international. We're trying to pioneer new equipment and technologies. We do perennial wildlife management, trying to encourage farmers to manage habitat for deer, turkeys, and non-hunting species. Our place is subject to a lot of pressure from development from Owasso, so there's an influx of wildlife, so I'm trying to enrich my habitat to make a better home for them for years to come. This is the center. These are my swales. Just more examples of the swales. And this one, I did a little Fibonacci curve up there. That's more to confuse people than anything else. And I had people stop by the other day to investigate the Native American burial mounds that they found on satellite. And they showed me that picture, and I'm like, well, those are actually mounds I made covered in grass. The other example they showed me was somebody's field that they'd cut for hay but hadn't picked up in hay bales. That was the next site they were going to, so I don't think they were very successful that day. This is one of the things that we had engineered for our tiller, because I work with schools, and I'm getting to that soon. But this follows my tiller and leaves behind a 4-foot wide raised bed, so I can minimize human labor, minimize raking. Nobody likes raking that much. And I was able to do this at schools in town and replace a whole month of somebody digging these mounds by hand in 4 hours. And so here you can see that the water runs off, so when we get our 6-inch rains that we get in Oklahoma, it doesn't flood your plants. The plants are planted on the high part with mulch all around it. These are my pigs. I feed them bagels and pecans, and I've made a mobile pen, so we're not overgrazing. We're using them to fertilize and move from place to place, so we can push them around. That's actually 1 day of their work, so we're trying to get them to do work for us. So Tulsa area projects, have you guys heard of the Tisdale Food Forest? I was part of designing that and implementing it. It was a partnership with Tulsa, Upwood Trees, and Brady Heights Neighborhood Association. We did it to reduce pollution and things that come into the neighborhood, noise, particulates from the highway. It's a low-income area right across the highway, so we're trying to create more food and more labor for young people. It's beautiful, and a lot of what we do is focusing on enriching habitat in urban areas as well. We may not like the raccoons that get into our trash, but they need a home too. And this is another example or picture of the system. And if you guys haven't seen it, I would suggest driving by. It's right on the Tisdale Expressway between Pine and Downtown Loop. We have about 500 trees, and they're producing this year. We use kids from the neighborhood to harvest, and we'll eventually have set up farmers markets in local areas. We get kids from TSAS to come out and mulch and learn about the system. The Meadows Food Forest is in a Section 8 housing community, and we did this with Tulsa Housing Authority. Because they're not having access to vegetables and food, and we've always thought that gardening is really therapeutic and community building. So we have gardens and perennials, the perennials being the trees, and we feel that perennials are a sign of the future, because you're not going to get a reward the first year, maybe not even the first 3 years. So it's looking into the future and having hope and continuing being responsible and hopefully uplifting citizen. This is my favorite thing to do, and that's rip up Bermuda yards with my plow. So that's what we're doing right there. And here you can see these are the 3 swales. And like I said, Oklahoma, our topography is about like this, but water will run off my hand. And after a rain, these fill up. Oh, I'll show you that later. So here we have multiple generations sharing information. This Vietnamese man, he has taken over the garden and teaching the kids how to eat the turnip greens, how to pick them, how to plant. And it was just incredible to watch, because at first the kids were a plague on the garden, like, oh, it's green tomato, take it, don't eat it, so he helped manage that, and it's really cool to see kids working with somebody from a different culture that's in his late 70s. Be careful when you give kids pitchforks, though. I learned that the hard way, It can be dangerous. So we use waste stream utilization. There are a lot of things in our society that are turned out as trash. We use coffee grinds, for example, to enrich soil and compost. We use cardboard for sheet mulching and things like that. And in a project I'm involved with in Dallas, we, sometimes, this is a hard thing to say, but people coming out of incarceration are kind of viewed as waste products of our society. They can't get employment, they can't get jobs, and so we want to work more in the future, and I've worked with this one group to bring people into food production that are coming out of incarceration, so they can garden, farm, learn that technique and skill set, also while getting the therapy needed, being outdoors and supported by a job. I'm flying through this. I hope you guys are staying with me. Okay. So this is those same swale systems after a rain. That's about 8 inches deep of water. These are all turnips that come up that didn't get picked in the spring, so they flowered and create natural pollination for the bees and other insects. Here's the system with the trees planted here. Boom, 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 and bushes and shrubs in between. And this is one of our smaller scale projects, but pretty incredible to see the community get involved. That the Vietnamese man has produced over 150 pounds of squash for the neighborhood on his own each year for 3 years in the summer. So it's pretty exciting. And just, to see a kid pick up a turnip and be like, what is this? It's a turnip. And they're like, oh, I don't want that. And you peel it for them and give it to them, and they don't really like it. And then they go talk to other kids, and they come back, and they're eating it like Bugs Bunny, and they get the other kids to have them, and they may not like it, but they think it's cool because they picked it from the ground. And that's what it's about, is figuring out where our food comes from, being connected to it, being responsible in our choices. So Emerson Elementary, that just opened north of downtown. It's the first public-private Montessori in the state of Oklahoma, and they let the permaculture people of Tulsa design the campus. So we have both native food forests made of pecans, oaks, and persimmons, things that are native to Oklahoma, as well as other food forests that are made from fruits like apples, pears, peaches, plums, things that are not necessarily native but will thrive here. There's a commercial farm. This is a partnership with Up a Trees and Tulsa Public Schools. And we really hope that we can incorporate this kind of ecological farming into the curriculum over time. This is where it started. That's downtown right there. And you can see we're already bringing in wildlife. Those are geese right there. And these are our swales in the berm. First trees planted, first fruit. So 1 year we got fruit. That's pretty exciting. So I'm going to talk quickly. How much time do I have? Just 10 minutes. Okay. So internationally, we do the same thing as we do in Tulsa, but we work with subsistence farmers. A lot of farmers around the world are suffering marginal lands that are deteriorating, so they're getting drier and harder to farm. Plus, they're trying to compete with very large companies that are buying and selling corn. So if you have a corn crop in any country in the developing world, there are several things that can happen. Your corn crop can be planted and it rains, and then it stops raining, your crop dies, because they're all based on rain irrigation. Second thing, it rains, it continues raining, rains too much, you have no place to dry it, it spoils. Third option, it rains, you get the best crop you've ever had. Well, so did all your neighbors, so the market's shot, and you don't make any money. And a lot of these people are forced to sell at a less than market rate because they're at the end of the road. So the middleman with the truck is the one that makes the money. So they're sacrificing profits because they need cash input for school and things like that, cash costs. So we try and build these systems where they have food coming throughout the year, So every quarter they have food, every quarter they have products to sell, and they're not forced by economic neglect to make these poor decisions. Nicaragua, this place was chacra seca, and just devastated by cotton and banana production. It's very, very dry. We went down there to look at a project, Just Hope, that's actually based in Tulsa. And from that visit, we started little farm models with some of our volunteers, and also they bought and are turning a devastated farm into an agroecology learning center. This is I always like to interview the farmers everywhere I go, because the big thing I try and carry with me is that I am not an expert in Nicaragua. I'm not even an expert in Oklahoma, but these people are. And so I try and mine as much information from them as possible instead of going there and trying to tell them what to do. I don't know anything about farming in Nicaragua. So I kind of ask questions and float around. And one thing that really bothers me is when people sweep up all the leaves and burn them, and their yard's just dirt, water's running off. Organic matter is the most important thing in the soil, because each % organic matter you increase in the soil, you increase your soil's ability 8 times to hold water. And that's what we want. We want our soil to be a water battery. So if you're burning all the leaves, there goes the carbon, there goes everything. You can't reincorporate into your soil as well. So I asked, what do you guys do with your leaves? Because I was going to feel out the farmers. He's like, oh, I burn them. Next guy's like, my wife burns them. And then she's like, well, they come from trees, so I put them back around the base. I'm like, that's good. That's a step up. And then this woman, she's like, well, I compost it and add a little manure, and I grow my garden in it. I'm like, okay, champion. So we started working with her, mining her for information. Her son became a very pivotal volunteer in our system there. This is him operating A-frame. So it's really hard to see on the screen, but they're orange flags. Those are the pre-contours. So it's all on the same elevational plane. It's just so dusty, you would not believe it. So here, that same field where all the water that collected in this field would just run straight down to that road and flood, now is stopped by 6 different swales so it has a chance to soak in and recharge groundwater. This is some of the erosional. This is an actual well-traveled road, and it's centuries old, and the erosion has just eaten it out over years and years, and it's not looking like it's getting much better. This is moringa. Have you guys heard of moringa oleifera? Anybody? It's a miracle tree, a legume that fixes nitrogen and also cures 300 diseases. My dad was influential in popularizing that for like the last 30 years, so we try and incorporate it into our systems. We buy a lot of trees to stimulate the economy. This is one of the most important slides, though it doesn't look like that. It's all about the future of the children, and this is my sister, who I work with on every project. And working with Sophie, my sister, I've learned, and all of our seminars, there are basically 2 types of people. There are old, stubborn men that don't want to change, and there are young, ambitious women that care about their families and are very progressive. And as it turns out, I'm the first one and she's the second one. And so it was hard to, at first, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, why don't I want to do that? I guess I do want to do that, and so working with Sophie really balances that between us. And this is one of the worst tasks you have to do. After you plant the trees, you accumulate leaves and things like that, and you mulch the plants so the water stays in. You're tired, you're hot, you just don't want to do it. Sophie, the reasonable, passionate one's like, well, we have to do it. It's the most important. So she pushes the right direction. I just want to be lazy, and we do what she wants to do. We look for positive deviants, positive outliers, people that are not doing what everybody else is doing that have a positive impact. So this farmer is not sweeping their yard. They have a little drainage irrigation here from their laundry soap that's going to several different trees and a little garden here. It's overgrown, but it's all vines and gourds and things like that. So we try and find those people and help them champion our progress in a community. And this picture, I just did it because it's for the kids, We're we're leaving this world for them. Paraguay, another project that we started as a family, and we're working with a Ache community, people that were expelled from the forest. They were hunter-gatherers, and when they came out and had to deal with cash economies, they weren't handling that very well. So we went down to try and simulate a hunter-gatherer type system in a modern agriculture landscape, and try and let them hunt and gather in a perennial food forest and meet all their dietary needs instead of eating processed food, leasing their land to big soy companies that just plow everything down. And like I said, everywhere I go, I pretend not to know anything. And we use a plow most often to make our swales. That's how they make theirs, because it's so much rain. They'll get 8-10 inches in the evening. So this is the forest reserve there. These are the swales and berms. This is the day we planted, and we had a lot of bananas and plantains here where a lot of water accumulates, and then our bigger fruit trees on the back. And this is 1.5 years later. And as a system matures, the inputs become fewer and fewer, and every output is an input in another part of the system. So you're recycling nutrients and manure and everything you possibly can. That's why I'm kind of a hoarder, because I never know when I'm going to need that tube or that piece of cardboard, you know. My fiance hates that aspect of me, by the way. So here's another after picture, and you can see all the bananas and plantains, and I think this is an avocado or mango. And these systems are built to be climate change resistant, drought resistant. When we teach in Tanzania, we ask a question, oh, who planted that mango tree? And they're like, some old man that's not around. Who takes care of it? No one. Looking at us like we're not very smart. They're like, no one takes care of that tree. Well, does it produce food every year? Oh, yeah, it does. And they start to catch on, and they see the perennial direction that we're going in. So Mainsprings is, have you guys heard of JBFC? It's another organization in Tulsa. We partner with them to do the permaculture development for their first campus, and they're a girls' home, and they provide over 700 meals each week. When we met them, my sister did a project evaluation for them. They're spending 80% of their income on food and fuel to go buy food, yet they had arable land. So we helped them convert that into a food forest. They planted over 3,000 trees. They're producing 1,400 kgs of food a week now and selling it back to markets. They have a farm-to-table school, or a farm-to-table restaurant where the girls can learn how to cook and serve and be in that industry, and they're actually selling food back to the markets and community. This is what the site we developed, our initial test plot, right? We went there and developed a test plot. And this is after what we call go to get in. The goats got in and ate everything. So we started over with a seminar, and this is what it turned into. And that's the polyculture picture I sent you, or showed you at first. And it's just incredible to see the difference between this field and the neighbor's field. The neighbor is bare dirt, baking in the sun. He's out there digging all of his holes. This has bugs, birds, fruit, insects, everything going on. It's just, shade should never be underrated also. You know, we know that in Oklahoma. And it's a thriving ecosystem, and it's producing more food than the neighbor with less effort. My mentor is named Mark Shepard. He wrote a book, Restoration Agriculture, and he's a fairly well-known permaculture guy. So this is our second seminar there that we've hosted, and we host it incorporating students from public and private schools in the area, also farmers in the area, so they can take back some of the information. This is the dirt we started with. This is the dirt in our swale after 2 or 3 years. So it's so much more organic material. We did a demonstration for the kids where we had different trays. One was full of sand, one was full of this dirt we found under some trees. We poured 1 cup of water into this, and before we got done, it was dripping out the bottom, like bringing sand with it. This other tray, we put 6 cups of water in before it started to just drip out to demonstrate organic material in the soil being a benefit. We showed them how to do gray water systems, so their wastewater could be used for trees and other plantings. Second campus, we just started because they were so successful with their first. The first campus, we had to integrate permaculture designs. This one we started from the very beginning. This is one of the harder layouts I've had to do because they said, oh, it's a gentle, nice, smooth field down to the lake. Not true at all. It had, turns out the whole place was a pine plantation, so every 6 feet there was a stump this big and rocks and everything, but it turned out to be one of the most beautiful systems. And these are all the rows with the trees in it. It's very young in age. That's Lake Victoria. That's the first girls' dorms. This is their chicken mansion, and they have a 2-story chicken mansion and allow the chickens to go in the rows to eat the bugs and everything else and then back. So they're using the chickens to fertilize and things like that. Uganda, we're working with JGI, Jane Goodall Institute. We're trying to create a permaculture corridor to help the farmers, help the ecology, and create a functional connectivity between 2 isolated forest blocks for chimpanzees. Because if a female chimp gets kicked out of her troop, they need to be able to access other genetics. And they don't need like a whole forest, but they need riparian zones and little creeks that they can follow to reach the other tribe, so to speak. Lots of slash and burn agriculture. It's very common in Uganda. Charcoal, illegal charcoal production. Seasonal burning. Overgrazing, sugarcane encroachment. These are all things that are taking away from the forest each year. And so we selected a site that was on a community-driven piece of property, so no one would be seen as a favorite. And we held a seminar, and again, the guy got up and said, this is an expert from the United States. And I was like, whoa, let me just stop you right there. Who knows more about farming in Uganda, you or me? They're like, well, we do. I'm like, exactly. And from that point on, it's so much better how you interact with people and the information you get and the information you're able to exchange. So this is a system after we made the swales, and then we planted the trees, and I haven't been back to take the follow-up picture. So you guys will have to wait for that. We chose this particular community because they did a riparian reconstruction project that took 6 years, and they went from having no water and having to walk 3 hours a day to returning water throughout the year to their local stream. So they were already aware of the benefits of trees in the perennial system, so now we're using that to expand up the hill. And then this is what I end with. That's Jane Goodall. She's kissing a tree that we planted at my ranch, and that's it.
Thanks, EJ, for a really interesting talk. EJ has agreed to stick around for a few minutes after if you want to come out to visit with him individually. If you have questions, that'd be great. We really appreciate your being here. A book recognizing today's program will be presented to our partner in education school, Celia Clinton. The book is Hector's Shell. I don't know what that's about, but it looks interesting. Upcoming programs, September 12th, Officer Jesse Guardiola and Police and Immigration. And then on September 9th, our district governor, Rotary District Governor Jane Lowe, will be here to visit with us. So thank you for being here, and let's not lose sight of that grand Rotary International vision. Together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. We are adjourned.